Saturday's UFC 279, Khamzat Chimaev demoted to the co-main event in a 5-round fight against a fellow fighter who has taken part in quite a few main events. We have the Trailblazer, Kevin Holland. Thanks so much for joining in with Fight Night Picks. As always, Craig Allen, at Craig Allen FNP, Matt Allen, respective socials, at Matt Allen FNP, the Twitter, the Instagram. And if you saw us on the Twitter and Instagram, you would have known that these fights are coming up. We have Lee Jingliang, Daniel Rodriguez, Chimaev versus Holland in the main event. Tony Ferguson taking on Nate Diaz. Now, this fight is at a catchweight of 180 pounds. Originally, Kevin Holland was supposed to take on Daniel Rodriguez at a catchweight of 180 pounds. Originally, Khamzat Chimaev was supposed to make the welterweight limit, but due to, just some craziness and some stuff that we don't like, Jimmy doesn't like mistakes. Mistakes and Jimmy, they kind of clash. And for Khamzat Chimaev, he had a Jimmy mistake and showed up weighing in at 178.5 for his fight against Nate Diaz. The Diaz camp, all 59, 60 of them in the entourage.
They run deep.
They said no. So ultimately, Chimaev gets to fight Kevin Holland, a fight that just about came to blows, if it didn't already, backstage at the press conference just last night on Thursday night. We taped this on Friday. Matt, there is bad blood that's boiled over into this one, and it should be a fun fight while it lasts.
I genuinely think this is going to be a fun fight. Now, maybe we disagree on how competitive the final matchup is going to be, but here's the way I look at it. If Chimaev looks at Kevin Holland's record and says, hey, I can fight like Derek Brunson, I can fight like Marvin Vettori, I can work my way in with my striking, because it is effective, don't get me wrong. Khamzat Chimaev is a very good striker. If you've watched any of his UFC career, you know that by now. But if he does fight like he fought against Gilbert Burns, for instance, I can see Kevin Holland being an absolute handful for Chimaev. He throws straight shots.
He's going to get knocked out if he tries to strike like that against Kevin Holland.
Exactly. Like, Kevin Holland is a very good long-distance striker, and at welterweight, he has legitimate power. Like, Gilbert Burns...
No, at 180 pounds, exactly. Even more.
So, thank you. I'm very glad we agree on this so far, because I was talking to some people at work today, and they all said, that Kevin Holland guy's gonna die, and I said, no, he isn't. He's a real handful, and the good thing about Kevin Holland is, and I know people are gonna roll their eyes at this, he's not gonna give up on himself. Like, Kevin Holland thinks he can win this fight, and he thinks he can win it in the first minute, he thinks he can win it in the last minute, and that genuinely means a lot when you're fighting a guy like Chimaev. Our boy Gerald Mearshart, a submission specialist, even came out and said, like, I kind of got in my own head before I fought Chimaev. That's why he went down so hard from the first shot. Kevin Holland thinks he can win, and that's the thing. He had good power at middleweight, so he has great power at welterweight. And like I said, if Chimaev fights like he fought against Gilbert Burns, he could get knocked out. But here's the thing. He chose to strike against Gilbert Burns because Gilbert Burns is one of the greatest jiu-jitsu players to ever transition over to MMA and have high-level success. Kevin Holland has a black belt under Travis Lutter, and that's very high level, don't get me wrong. Like, that means a lot, but that's not the same level of accolades that Gilbert Burns has. So I really do expect Khamzat Chimaev to go in there, start wrestling like Marvin Vettori did against Kevin Holland. But the thing is, I don't really know what they do with Khamzat Chimaev, and this is the one question that I wanted to give to you before
It's all off the board. Fans booed him. You lose the main event. Like, everybody's turned on him. And Darren Till, they're both in a terrible boat.
And it feels like everybody has turned on him. So this is my theory. Do you know who the worst matchup for Khamzat Chimaev is between welterweight and middleweight? He just fought and beat Marvin Vettori, who's impossible to take down and very technical at striking. Is that who you give Chimaev to next, almost trying to, like, gloat him into a loss? Because matchups matter, because we just saw the reshuffling of this whole entire card. They don't want to give Chimaev the golden goose, a.k.a. Nate Diaz. So for Chimaev, let's say he does beat Kevin Holland. Let's say he goes out there, fights like he did against Reese McKee. He doesn't need a lot of damage. He's able to dish out a lot on the ground. Like you said, it doesn't really feel like his stock goes anywheres after this fight.
They don't want to give him the golden goose. He lost that opportunity.
Oh,
he had it in his hands. He lost it against Nate Diaz, missing the weight. And that's the thing that scares me the most, is when you do go out there, you watch what Dana White said. He's really counting on the fact that and saying Khamzat Chimaev had a tough weight cut. We're going to see what happens. And ultimately, they make this fight. And there was talks about extenuating circumstances this morning, illness, this medical issues, whatever it was surrounding Khamzat Chimaev. All allegedly, we end up with this fight. But when he walked out for that press conference weigh-in that they have, the ceremonial weigh-ins, Kevin Holland gets a huge pop. He hangs out with Dana White, who he gave the Freddy Krueger SBs, which are awesome and very, very limited and old.
Kevin Holland's a cool dude.
And if you look at it for Chimaev, he got booed mercilessly, and then he kept doing his rhetoric on the mic, but it didn't land with anybody, and I don't think Joe Rogan understood what he was saying. So ultimately, we look at the odds for this fight, Matt. Chimaev opened in minus 1,000, quickly became a minus 544. For Kevin Holland, open plus 675, now at a plus 394. If we have a look at Fight Night Picks on Instagram, we threw this one out to you as a poll, and we have so far 368 total votes, 70% Chimaev for 30% with Kevin Holland. This matchup, much more difficult than Nate Diaz, the guy that's like, hey, finish me, beat me. You want to beat me? Beat me.
Kevin Holland's going to outweigh Nate Diaz by a solid 20 pounds. And the whole thing that I had about Nate Diaz being at such a disadvantage to Khamzat Chimaev is that, hey, okay, outside of him missing weight, because there was no way we could have predicted that at the start of the week, Khamzat, if he was able to successfully cut down to 170 and then rehydrate, probably would have been in the realm of 200 pounds. Like, that is what the big welterweights weigh in at. I vividly remember, just if I may, Douglas Lima had fought on the same card where Rory McDonald had fought Gegard Mousasi, and that card was contested in California. And the great thing about California is they do the same day weigh-ins too, and then they'll show you sort of the percentage that the fighter gained. Douglas Lima, who weighed in at welterweight, ended up weighing more than Rory McDonald did the day of the fight, and Rory weighed in at 185. Rory weighed in on the day of the fight at about 188. Douglas Lima was almost 197. He was almost 200 pounds. So Chimaev is going to have a size advantage probably over Kevin Holland, even though Kevin Holland, again, like Daniel Rodriguez, did expect to weigh 180 on fight week, unlike Chimaev, who expected to weigh 170. I still think Chimaev will be a little bit bigger, but they are both those tweeners, you know what I mean? Like, they are the 170, 185ers. So I do think Kevin Holland will be a little bit competitive with his physicality in this matchup.
I mean, if you have a friend that said, hey, bud, did Khamzat Chimaev make weight? You do like Bryce Harper in his rookie season and go, hey, that's a clown question, bro. And you just take it for what it's worth. I think this is one of those, buster type of fights at the end of the night. You get mad about it. Treat this one like popping popcorn. Watch it with us on the sidekick. I still have Khamzat Chimaev in the back of my head. Again, I look at Vettori having over 10 takedowns in the fight against Kevin Holland. I look at Derek Brunson having 8. I think Chimaev can have success, but if he has success, he has to do a lot with that early success, because this fight, from minute 2.5 to minute 10.5, favors Kevin Holland increasingly. You know exactly what Kevin Holland can do in terms of generating power while he's getting up, hitting an all-time legend in Jacare Souza. Great cardio, great length and range, and this is a 5-round fight. Holland was due for a 3-round fight against Daniel Rodriguez. I don't question his cardio regardless, but I very much question the cardio of Chimaev. So for a pick being for a pick's sake, being in the namesake of the channel, I have Sweden's Khamzat Chimaev. I don't like it. You don't like it. Nobody likes it. But that's where I'm going with this one. And if I get it wrong, we move on to next week and we look at this guy. And listen, I mean, Dana White's probably going to go scorched earth in the post-fight press conference.
I would agree. Dana Red is going to make an appearance. He's going to look redder than your shirt. Here's the thing. I agree with you. I do think Khamzat Chimaev is going to win this fight. This is one of the rare times where, like, the UFC fan in me would like to see Kevin Holland be able to pull off the upset. You know what I mean? The cards are stacked against him. Like,
he wanted the fight.
He wanted the fight. He's, like, his mouth gets him into a lot of these fights. That's why he was called Big Mouth for a long time before Trailblazer. Like, Kevin Holland does everything right outside of the cage, and it would be nice to see him be rewarded for a big win over Khamzat Chimaev as the underdog, because, let's be honest, Kevin Holland probably fights Leon Edwards next if he's able to beat Khamzat Chimaev. I know that's a wild thing to say, but I genuinely do believe the UFC would be like, hey, you do that favor for us, we're going to do a favor for you. Unless Nate Diaz looks incredible against Tony Ferguson. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the next video. There's a real chance Nate Diaz might fight for the title next if he beats Tony Ferguson. But I agree. I do have Khamzat Chimaev for his wrestling advantage. I think he is just going to go rinse and repeat with the takedowns, because that's the thing. If he does strike with Kevin Holland, that's a risky fight.
Yeah, let us know down below in the comments section. So much so on this fight, you have Jingliang versus Rodriguez, the main event, Ferguson Diaz. They're all new matchups. We need to hear from you. Let us know who you have for both of us. Chimaev in the matchup, reluctantly, with all the red flags in the world. We have a giant card coming up tomorrow. Question mark kicks 2 hours before the prelims, 4 p.m. Eastern. The sidekick 15 minutes before that top of the hour. It's going to start at 9:45 p.m. Eastern. You're going to want to tune in with Fight Night Picks. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, and as we always say, let's get into it.